The sky was tearing itself apart. Marcus Hale had seen storms before, on Earth, on barren outposts, on forgotten colonies, but nothing like this one. It wasn't weather. It was war. The atmosphere itself seemed to rage at him. Winds screamed like knives, dragging sheets of caustic rain that ate through rock as though the world wanted to consume itself. His HUD flickered, radiation levels spiking, suit plating sizzling with every drop. Get inside. Now. The order wasn't from his comms. It was his survival instinct hammering louder than any fleet commander's voice. He sprinted over broken ridges, boots slipping in the mud, lungs burning behind the cracked seal of his helmet. Lightning ripped across the horizon, jagged white spears that carved through clouds like the anger of gods. Every strike lit the ground in pale fire, each one a reminder he had minutes left before his suit's systems failed. Then, blackness. Not from the storm, but from a hollow in the cliffs ahead. A mouth in the mountain, sharp-edged and wide, almost inviting. He stumbled forward, half sliding, half falling into the dark. The shift was immediate. The world outside vanished behind him. The roar of the storm dulled to a distant rumble. The rain hissed against the cave's lip but didn't follow him in. He collapsed to his knees, tearing his helmet off to gulp real air. It was cold, dry, ancient, stale but breathable. His heart still thundered in his ears louder than the storm. Marcus leaned against the wall, closing his eyes for a second too long. The silence should have comforted him. Instead, it pressed against him like a weight. The cave wasn't empty. He could feel it. Like eyes on his back, like breath on his neck. He pulled his rifle free, thumb brushing the safety. The soft hum of its power core was the only sound. He forced himself to his feet, beam light flicking on from his wrist. The cave stretched deep beyond sight. Stone glittered faintly as though flecked with minerals, but too many of the angles were wrong. Too smooth, too deliberate. Not natural. He scanned left and right, pulse hammering, until the silence broke. A voice, not an echo. Not his comms. Not human. At last, the whisper curled around him like smoke, low and drawn out, every syllable dragging against his bones. His light wavered in his hand. The voice wasn't in front of him. It wasn't behind him. It was everywhere. You're the first meal in 500 years. Marcus froze, every nerve screaming. His rifle snapped upward, but there was nothing to aim at. Nothing but darkness shifting just out of reach. He swallowed. Show yourself. The cave seemed to laugh. The sound wasn't sharp. It was deep, rolling, ancient, as though the mountain itself was amused. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. His light caught something massive stirring deeper within, but the beam barely skimmed it before it shifted again. The whisper came closer. Inside his head this time. I have waited, trapped, starving, and you come, fragile little spark. Flesh wrapped in steel, a taste I have never known. Marcus forced his boots to move, backing toward the cave mouth. The storm still raged outside, lightning turning the entrance into a strobing nightmare. He was cornered, burn alive outside or face whatever this was within. His training screamed tactics, mark target, call fleet, hold position, but his instincts roared louder. This wasn't war. This wasn't battle. This was predator and prey. And right now, he was the prey. The shape in the dark shifted again. He caught the faintest gleam, something curved like a claw, something layered like armor. Too big, too wrong. His light barely touched it before shadows swallowed it whole. Then the voice whispered softer, almost playful. Run if you want. The storm will strip your skin in minutes. Stay here and you belong to me. Either way, human. I finally feed. Marcus tightened his grip on the rifle, forcing steel into his voice, despite the chill crawling his spine. If I'm your meal, you're going to choke on me. The cavern shook at the sound of its laughter. And Marcus knew with absolute certainty he wasn't alone. Marcus steadied his rifle, forcing his breath into measured pulls. The cave smelled faintly of ozone and something older, metallic, like rust soaked in blood. His beam swept across the cavern, sliding over sharp ridges and uneven walls until it caught movement, slow, deliberate, impossibly massive. Stone groaned. Not from shifting rock, but from weight pressing against it. Then, the unmistakable scrape of claws raking over the floor. Sparks flared briefly in the dark, swallowed a heartbeat later. The voice came again, thicker now, vibrating through the walls. 5 centuries. Entombed in chains, I dreamed of the hunt, of screams torn from flesh. And now, at last, a morsel stumbles into my jaws. Marcus clenched his teeth. Try it, and you'll learn humans bite back. The laugh that answered made his blood run cold. It wasn't madness, it was hunger dressed as amusement, deep enough to shake dust loose in steady waves. His beam widened, finally cutting across something that stole the air from his lungs. A scale, black as the void, larger than his torso. His light traced upward over ridges of armored flesh, muscles shifting beneath until it landed on a single eye, burning amber, slit pupil contracting at the sudden brightness. The eye didn't blink. It studied him, dissected him, as though judging whether he was worth the effort. Marcus's finger hovered over the trigger, but some instinct whispered that firing now would be like spitting into a black hole. The creature tilted its head, shadowed teeth glinting for a second. So small, so fragile, and yet your words carry defiance. Tell me, little flame, do your kind still fight? Do you still claw against the dark? Marcus's heart thudded. The question wasn't idle curiosity, it was testing him. We don't just fight, he said, voice steadier than he felt. We survive. No matter the odds. The eye narrowed. The massive body shifted, shaking the cavern like thunder. Good. Then you are not just prey, Marcus blinked. Then what am I? The thing leaned forward, its shape finally emerging from the dark. Wings curled tight like shrouds, claws rooted in the stone, chains of crystalline energy snaked around its limbs. The lines glowed faintly, pulsing like veins, binding it in place. I am Calith, the voice rumbled, deeper now, spoken with the weight of centuries. Warden of the Void, slayer of the Devourers, and prisoner of cowards who feared me more than death itself. Marcus's light trembled over the chains, scanning automatically. They weren't rock. They were containment fields, dormant but not broken, humming faintly at his proximity. Whoever had locked this monster here hadn't wanted it gone. They'd wanted it silenced. Calith's gaze burned brighter. Your enemies still crawl among the stars, do they not? The ones who strip planets to ash, the ones who devour all life. The Zur, Marcus muttered before he could stop himself. His jaw tightened. They've razed entire sectors. Billions gone. The cavern pulsed with Calith's laughter, not cruel this time, hungry. So they live still. Then fate has teeth, and it drags you to me. You bring me news worth more than your flesh. Marcus kept the rifle up. If you're not planning to eat me, what do you want? Calith's wings flexed, brushing the ceiling, scattering rock like sand. Freedom. My strength has withered, my hunger gnaws, but with your touch, the seals stir. You can break them. Free me, and I will feed not on you, but on your enemies. I will show them why they buried me beneath this mountain. Marcus's mind raced. Every instinct screamed, don't trust it. His training told him to mark the cavern, call for extraction, and let the fleet's science division handle whatever this thing was. But every memory of burning colonies, every desperate last stand against Zur fleets, cut through his hesitation. If this monster was telling the truth, if it was what it claimed to be, then it might be the only weapon humanity had left. Still, the risk was absolute. If he released it and it turned on him, he'd die before firing a second shot. Humanity could fall with him. Marcus tightened his grip, forcing a smirk onto his face he didn't feel. And if I don't free you? Calith's eyes gleamed sharp as blades. Then you die here in silence. Your bones will rot in the dark, and when the chains break on their own, I will feed on your descendants instead. The storm outside cracked, lightning striking so hard the cavern trembled. Marcus stared into the burning eyes, caught between annihilation in the storm or annihilation in the cave, and for the first time since landing on this cursed world, he felt something unexpected in his chest. Not dread, not despair, possibility, because monsters, at least, could be pointed at other monsters. Marcus's glove hovered above the glowing chains. The energy pulsed faintly, reacting to his presence. He hesitated, jaw tight. feeling the heat radiate from the bindings. Whatever these restraints were, they weren't meant to be broken easily. Calith loomed above, muscles taut, wings pressed against the cavern's roof. The amber fire of his eyes didn't blink. He was waiting, testing, daring. Why me? Marcus muttered. Why now? Because you are human, Calith answered, his voice filling every corner of the cavern. Your kind burns brightest when cornered. You are the spark. You are the hand fate sends. Marcus almost laughed. Fate doesn't send scouts. It abandons them. But even as the words left his lips, he pressed his palm against the crystal bands. His scanner lit instantly, reading impossible data streams. The energy field rippled like water at his touch, reacting to his blood chemistry, his neural patterns. Calith's head lowered, massive teeth gleaming in the dim light. Yes, you carry what the ancients feared most, adaptability. You were never meant to open this prison. That is why you can. The bindings flared, blinding white. Marcus yanked his hand back, alarms screaming across his HUD, but it was too late. The crystal cracked, webbing fractures across its surface. The cavern roared, chains shattered like glass, exploding outward in bursts of molten light. The ground heaved under Marcus's boots. He staggered, shielded his eyes as Calith's wings unfurled, scraping stone walls, spraying shards of rock into the air. The mountain itself groaned, as if it might collapse. When the light faded, Marcus lowered his arm. Calith stood unbound. The Titan stretched like a predator waking from centuries of sleep. Wings arched wide, each membrane veined with fire, casting shadows that swallowed the cavern whole. His body was built for war, scales overlapping like armor plates, claws curved to rend steel, his chest glowing faintly with energy pulsing from deep within. Marcus could only stare. No machine, no alien warship, no creature he'd seen came close to the sheer presence radiating from this thing. Calith was a weapon forged from hunger and fury. 500 years, Calith thundered, his voice now free of the muffling chains. 500 years of silence. Now the stars will hear me roar again. Marcus steadied his rifle out of reflex, though it felt like pointing a knife at a storm. If you're free, then prove it. Fight with us. The Xir are out there right now. Calith turned his gaze skyward. Through cracks in the cavern ceiling, Marcus could see faint flashes of light, ships in orbit, weapons discharging. Human distress signals crackled weakly in his comms. Calith's lip curled back into something between a smile and a snarl. So the Devourers already stalk your skies. Good. With a single beat of his wings, he launched upward. The cavern split with the force. Shockwaves slammed Marcus against the wall, rattling his teeth. He scrambled to his feet, sprinting toward the exit as boulders rained down behind him. Outside, the storm had broken. Clouds ripped apart as though bowing to Calith's ascent. The Titan pierced the heavens, trailing fire, his roar echoing across the valley like a war drum. Marcus stumbled into the open air, staring upward. Above, human frigates twisted in chaotic formations, under relentless fire from the Xir fleet. Plasma beams carved through metal, ships breaking into blossoms of fire. His comms came alive, shouts, screams, fragmented orders. He slammed his helmet back on. This is Lieutenant Marcus Hale. Groundside, contact confirmed. Sending coordinates of an asset. He hesitated, glancing at the streak of fire tearing into orbit. Correction, a weapon. The operator on the other end barely had time to ask before Calith reached the first Xir ship. The Titan hit like a meteor. His claws tore through the hull, rending it open as though it were made of paper. The ship ignited from within, detonating in a sphere of light that lit the night sky. Marcus's comms erupted with disbelief. What the hell was that? By God, it's alive! But Calith was already moving. He ripped through a destroyer, wings slicing apart gun platforms, then spat a torrent of burning plasma that engulfed an entire carrier. Human pilots, once in retreat, rallied behind the spectacle. Marcus's pulse hammered in his chest as he watched. Against reason, against all fear, humanity had just gained an ally older and deadlier than anything the Xir had unleashed. Yet as Calith soared higher, Marcus knew the chains might not have been just to protect the galaxy from him. They might have been to protect everyone else from what Calith truly was, and Marcus had just set him loose. The stars were burning. From the surface, Marcus could see it all. Human ships caught in a storm of enemy fire, their lines breaking apart like glass under a hammer. The Odyssey fleet wasn't built for a stand. They were scouts, patrol craft, lightly armed destroyers. Against the Zir Dominion's warships, they were prey. But Calith wasn't prey. The Titan tore upward, wings igniting like twin comets, his roar carrying across vacuum, as if sound itself obeyed him. He hit the Zir formation head-on, a living blade cutting into their armored heart. Marcus scrambled to his corvette on the ridgeline, suit servos whining. He dove into the cockpit, hands flying over controls. Engines roared alive. The ship lifted, battered by the storm's dying winds, and punched into the upper atmosphere. His chest rattled with turbulence until the black of space swallowed him. And then, chaos. The void was alive with death. Wreckage spun in slow arcs, shredded hulls trailing fire like falling stars. Human voices screamed through the comms, fragmented by interference. "We can't hold..." Static. Shields collapsing. Static. Request evac. Then the comms exploded with something new. Holy hell, did you see that? It's ripping them apart. Marcus banked hard, catching sight of Calith in the distance. The Titan ripped free from the carcass of a cruiser, his claws glowing with molten scraps of its reactor. He flung the debris into another warship, punching a hole straight through its midsection. Plasma cannons tried to track him, but he moved too fast, wings slamming against shields until they buckled and burst. For every second Calith fought, human ships gained ground. Frigates once in retreat wheeled back into the fray, cannons blazing. Fighters regrouped around Marcus's corvette, taking his lead. "Lieutenant Hale, what the hell are we following?" A pilot demanded over comms. Marcus's mouth was dry. "Our only chance." He dove into formation, weaving through wreckage. A Zir destroyer locked weapons on him, but Calith swooped down first. His jaws split open, unleashing a torrent of searing flame that lanced across the destroyer's bow. Metal bubbled and split before the entire vessel erupted in silence. But the Dominion wasn't panicking. From the shadow of their command ship, ranks of drones surged into the void, sleek, needle-shaped constructs built for swarming. They blotted out the stars in waves, converging on the Titan like a flood of locusts. Calith met them with fire and fury, but numbers pressed heavy. The swarm clung to his wings, biting through scales, detonating in suicidal flashes. His bellow rattled Marcus's bones even through the corvette's hull. "Cover him!" Marcus barked. "All ships on me! Clear those drones!" The fleet hesitated, then obeyed. Human vessels tightened into a spearhead formation, unleashing a wall of missiles and plasma bolts. The first wave of drones disintegrated, but more spilled forth. It was endless, a living tide of blades. Calith thrashed, tearing dozens apart with each strike, but Marcus saw it. The Titan was slowing. His scales were scarred black, his wings shredded in patches. 5 centuries of starvation hadn't been erased by a single battle. Marcus clenched his jaw, diving into the swarm. His cannons flared, carving corridors through the mass. Fighters screamed past him, engines howling, cutting swaths of light through the dark. Each kill was nothing compared to Calith's devastation, but it was enough to buy him seconds. Seconds the Titan used to lunge at the Dominion's flagship. The mothership was colossal, a jagged cathedral of steel, bristling with weapon arrays. Calith slammed into its shields, claws digging, wings battering against its defenses. The energy field flared under the impact, bending but holding. "Marcus," his comms officer gasped. "He can't break it. The shield's too strong." Marcus's eyes narrowed. "Then we make him a path." He angled the corvette into a suicide run, targeting the shield generators at the ship's hull. Human destroyers followed, peeling off in synchronized sweeps. The void filled with explosions as every available vessel hurled their payloads into the shield line. It flickered, once, twice, then broke. Calith roared. His claws tore into exposed metal, wings driving him forward like a storm incarnate. He ripped the flagship's forward battery apart, tearing free its cannons and hurling them into space. Plasma fire engulfed him, but he pressed on, jaws glowing with a rising, terrible light. "Get clear!" Marcus shouted to his squad. The Titan's chest swelled. Then he unleashed it. Core fire, ancient energy burning hotter than any reactor. It blasted through the flagship's hull in a column of white flame, carving it open from bow to stern. The mothership buckled, rupturing in a silent scream as its core detonated. The shockwave rippled outward, shoving human ships aside like toys. Marcus gripped the controls, fighting to keep the corvette intact as debris rained across the void. When the light faded, the flagship was a drifting husk, burning silently against the stars. Cheers erupted across comms. "He did it! The flagship's down! We're winning!" But Marcus didn't cheer. His gaze locked on Kayleith. The Titan floated in the wreckage, wings torn, body scored with wounds. He still lived, still glared fire into the void, but Marcus could see it. This battle had cost him, and the war was far from over. The wreckage of the Dominion flagship still burned, scattering molten shards across orbit like falling suns, but the battlefield was far from silent. Marcus's scanners lit with dozens of new contacts. The Dominion hadn't retreated. They'd unleashed something worse. The swarm. It spilled from fractured carriers, from hidden pods drifting in the void, from the guts of the half-shattered fleet. Not ships, not fighters, living machines. Millions of needle-thin constructs moved as one, shifting through space like a tide of razors. They filled every gap the flagship's fall had left, blotting out stars until the void itself seemed to crawl. "Command, this is Hale," Marcus snapped into his comms. Swarm confirmed. "Repeat, mass drone swarm inbound. Advise all vessels, do not scatter. Tight formation only." Acknowledgements rattled back through the channel, voices tense. Even with Kayleith on their side, the sight of that endless storm was enough to paralyze. The first wave hit. Drones slammed against hulls in coordinated waves, cutting like saws into armor plating, burrowing into the superstructure. Human frigates screamed over comms as bulkheads ruptured, crews vented into space. Marcus pulled his corvette into a sharp roll, shaking 2 drones clamped to his wing before vaporizing them with rear cannons. His cockpit rattled from the impact of others scraping along his armor. Kayleith roared into the swarm, clawing through thousands, each beat of his wings scattering debris. Fire poured from his chest, sweeping corridors clear, but the drones adapted fast. They swirled around him like hunters around a wounded beast, diving for the rents in his scales, detonating in kamikaze bursts. His bellow shook Marcus's bones even through the vacuum, a sound of pain and fury both. "Cover him!" Marcus barked. "All squadrons, focus fire, keep them off the Titan." The fleet shifted, human pilots surging forward in waves, their fire tracing nets of light through the dark. Together they carved gaps, blasting drones before they latched onto Kayleith. But the cost was brutal. Every second, another ship winked off Marcus's radar. Through the chaos, Kayleith's voice thundered, not through comms, but in Marcus's skull. "Why, do you shield me, little flame? Why bleed for the beast you freed?" Marcus gritted his teeth, pulling hard on the controls to dodge a drone cluster. "Because you're not the enemy. The Gear are, if you fall, we fall, and humanity doesn't leave its own behind." Kayleith's laugh was ragged, tinged with pain, but it carried a strange pride. "Then let us bleed together." He unleashed another core flame burst, tearing a swath through the swarm, but Marcus saw the cracks it left, glowing fissures spreading across the Titan's body. He was burning his life away to hold the line. Marcus's mind raced. Firepower wouldn't be enough. They needed strategy. He scanned the swarm's movements, watching how it folded and shifted, reacting as one. Not chaos, coordination. There had to be a signal binding them. "There," he muttered, catching faint pulses in the static. A central node buried deep inside the mass, one drone larger than the rest, radiating commands. "The Queen?" He punched the comms. "All ships, listen up. The swarm isn't mindless, it's being directed. Target the control drone, mark my coordinates, and hit it with everything you've got." The fleet responded. Missiles and beams converged on the marked sector. The Queen drone tried to retreat, weaving through its children, but Kayleith surged ahead, his claws spearing into its core. With a twist, he ripped it in half. The effect was instant. The swarm faltered, their formation shattering. For precious moments, the tide broke, but victory came at a price. Caliph staggered in the void, his wings shredded, blood, if it could be called that, boiling from wounds that didn't heal. The Titan's fire dimmed, his movement slower, heavier. Marcus's corvette pulled alongside him, scanning. Warnings flared red across every reading. Caliph wasn't just injured, he was dying. "Stay with us," Marcus urged, voice cracking despite himself. "We're not done yet." The Titan's eye turned toward him, still burning, but softer now. "Not done? Human? We've only begun, but the galaxy takes its toll. My flame burns out." Then more Dominion ships broke from hiding, war engines limping into the fray, their weapons powering for a final strike. Humanity had bought time, but not salvation. Caliph bared his fangs in a final snarl, wings spreading despite their ruin. "Then I will give you my last gift. Take it, Flamebearer. Take my fire." A pulse of light surged from his chest. His claw pressed against Marcus's corvette, embedding something into its hull. A shard of pure, living plasma, a fragment of Caliph's own core. The Titan roared one last time, launching himself into the enemy line, tearing through ships in a blaze of self-immolation. The explosion lit the void like a newborn sun, swallowing dozens of Dominion vessels in its fury. When the glare faded, Caliph was gone, but his fire burned inside Marcus's ship, and the battle was not yet over. The silence after Caliph's detonation lasted only a heartbeat. Then the Dominion guns reopened. Cruisers and destroyers limped forward, bruised but still dangerous, their hulls scorched from the Titan's death throes. The swarm was broken, but not gone. Fractured clusters of drones still darted like feral insects, gnawing at human vessels. Marcus's corvette rattled as another blast grazed its shields. His crew shouted damage reports, but he barely heard them. His hands were on the controls, but his mind burned elsewhere, in the shard Caliph had embedded. It wasn't technology. It wasn't weaponry. It was life, a living sun caged inside his ship's core. It pulsed like a heartbeat through every circuit, through the metal walls, through his own chest. His veins felt aflame, his senses stretching beyond the cockpit. He could feel the positions of ships without sensors, the flow of enemy patterns, as if the void itself whispered them into his bones. And with that flame came Caliph's voice, fading yet resolute. "You carry me now, human. Prove that your kind are worthy of fire." Marcus didn't hesitate. "All units form up. I've got the power to finish this, but I need every last one of you alive to cover me." The human fleet, battered and bloodied, obeyed. Frigates locked shields, cruisers poured suppressive fire into enemy lines, fighters harried the drones with reckless bravery. Every surviving vessel closed ranks around Marcus, giving him the one thing he needed, a path. He pushed the corvette forward. The shard answered. Engines screamed beyond their limits, plasma conduits glowing white-hot as the ship blurred through space. Enemy fire lanced toward him, but shields thickened with Caliph's flame, bending beams aside. Marcus weaved through wreckage and drone clouds, his every maneuver instinctive. Guided by the living power burning through him, ahead loomed the Dominion's reserve carrier, a Leviathan still intact, bristling with guns and birthing fresh drones by the thousands. It was the spine of their assault. Break it, and the rest would crumble. Marcus's targeting systems locked, but ordinary weapons weren't enough. He could feel it. Caliph's shard wanted release. He opened the channel to his fleet. "This is it. Cover me to the carrier. Don't stop firing, no matter what happens." The corvette dove headlong. Fire lanced past him, tearing apart escorts, but the path stayed open. A human destroyer rammed a Dominion frigate to clear his flank. Pilots screamed defiance as they bought him seconds with their lives. Every sacrifice carved his way closer. When he reached firing range, Marcus let go. The shard flared. Light erupted through his ship, spilling from every seam, every weapon port. Plasma cannons became rivers of flame, missiles transformed into blazing comets. And the corvette itself was no longer just a vessel, but a spear of living fire. He drove it into the carrier's hull. The impact was cataclysmic. The shard burst free, consuming the corvette Marcus and the Dominion vessel in one searing eruption. The carrier split apart like paper in a furnace, drones collapsing into lifeless fragments as their command vanished. The blaze rolled outward, sweeping across the battlefield, igniting enemy hulls, unraveling their last formation. The Dominion fleet broke. Some ships fled into the void. Others burned where they lingered, swallowed by the tide of Calith's flame reborn through human will. Silence returned, this time lasting. When the light faded, fragments of Marcus's ship drifted in orbit, glowing embers among the wreckage. Human survivors, stunned, gathered their fleets, their voices hushed on comms. No one had seen him eject. No escape pod had launched. He was gone, yet the flame remained. The shard had not died with him. It lingered in every surviving ship, a faint pulse woven into their systems. Engines hummed with newfound vigor, weapons burned hotter, shields held stronger. Marcus's sacrifice, bound with Calith's gift, had seeded humanity with a living fire that could never again be caged. In the aftermath, battered crews whispered his name. Not as Hale the pilot, not as a soldier, but as the flame-bearer, the man who carried a god's heart into the jaws of death and turned extinction into victory. And across the void, hidden eyes watched. Other alien empires who had once feared Calith now turned their gaze toward humanity. They had seen a species take the fire of a titan and wield it without flinching. They had seen mortals turn myth into weapon. For the Dominion, this was a defeat. For humanity, it was only the beginning. Back on the storm world where it all began, the cave still stood, silent under the raging skies. If one listened closely, the winds carried a whisper, Calith's voice, mingled with Marcus's. We are flame. We endure. We rise. And the galaxy would never be the same.